Glycogenolysis. So glycogen molecule has a non-reducing end. Now at that non-reducing end there is a glucose residue. Now from that non-reducing end, that glucose residue is removed as alpha D glucose 1-phosphate. So from non-reducing end, this glucose residue is removed by phosphorylatic cleavage, and this is known as glycogenolysis. You take glycogen molecule, at non-reducing end there is a glucose residue. Now that glucose residue is removed by phosphorylatic cleavage, and what you get alpha D glucose 1-phosphate. Now this reaction is the reaction of glycogenolysis, okay, that is breakdown of glycogen. That reaction is catalyzed by this enzyme known as glycogen phosphorylase. Now this glycogen phosphorylase, which is responsible for a breakdown of glycogen, is a dimer, and it contains 842 residue subunit. It is made up of 842 residue subunits. Glycogen phosphorylase. Now this enzyme glycogen phosphorylase attacks exoglycosidic bonds. Okay, there are exoglycosidic bonds present in the glycogen molecule, and this enzyme attacks on them, and that is how the glycogen phosphorylase does the breakdown of glycogen. Pyridoxal phosphate is an essential cofactor in glycogen phosphorylase reaction. This pyridoxal phosphate helps this glycogen phosphorylase in the breakdown of glycogen. Now consider the active site of glycogen phosphorylase. Now at this active site there is a lysine. Now this lysine is linked to pyridoxal phosphate. So at the active site of your glycogen phosphorylase enzyme there is lysine, and this lysine is linked to pyridoxal phosphate. Why? Because this pyridoxal phosphate is an essential cofactor of glycogen phosphorylase. That's why at active site the lysine is linked with pyridoxal phosphate. Now this pyridoxal phosphate has a phosphate group. Now this phosphate group acts as a general acid catalyst. This pyridoxal phosphate promotes phosphate attack on the glycosidic bond, and when there is attack on glycosidic bond, the glycogen will break down, and that is glycogenolysis. So yeah, pyridoxal phosphate has a phosphate group which act as a general acid catalyst, because of which it promotes phosphate attack on the glycosidic bond, and because of which the glycogen breaks down. Now this glycogen phosphorylase enzyme acts repetitively on the non-reducing end of the glycogen, and it acts repetitively until that point where it is only 4 residues away from the alpha 1,6 branching point. So consider this is your glycogen molecule. Okay, now glycogen phosphorylase will come and will remove one glucose molecule one by one, and it will remove up to that point till there are 4 glucose residue from a branching point. Okay, up to this point only your glycogen phosphorylase is going to act. Okay, this glucose molecule and the branching point has a distance of 4 glucose residue. Okay, so only up to this glucose this glycogen phosphorylase will act. Okay, glycogen phosphorylase will not remove this glucose or this glucose. It cannot act any further because now the distance between this glucose and a branching point is of just 4 glucose residues. That's why. Now this glycogen phosphorylase is an allosteric enzyme, and therefore glycogen phosphorylase must have allosteric inhibitors and allosteric activators. So ATP, glucose 6-phosphate and glucose are the allosteric inhibitors of the glycogen phosphorylase, and AMP is the allosteric activator of glycogen phosphorylase. So if the system have AMP, then glycogen phosphorylase will break down the glycogen. But if the system have AMP, glucose, ATP, glucose 6-phosphate, glucose in the sufficient amount, then glycogen phosphorylase will not break down the glycogen. So this makes sense. You have enough glucose, you have enough ATP, enough energy, then why will you break down the glycogen? And that is the reason why this 3 molecule acts the inhibitor of glycogen phosphorylase, and that is why the glycogen breakdown is prevented, because there is no need. These are present in sufficient amount. Now this enzyme glycogen phosphorylase is also regulated by covalent modification. Now consider a glycogen molecule. It is made up of n number of glucose residues. Now this glycogen reacts with a phosphate in the presence of glycogen phosphorylase enzyme, of course. Now that produces one glucose 1-phosphate molecule. And now in your glycogen, one less glucose molecule is there, and that is represented by n-1. So it has now n-1 residues in it. Now this glycogen phosphorylase is the key enzyme in glycogen breakdown, but it can carry out the breakdown of glycogen up to a limited extent only. Now why is that? Because alpha-1,6 glycosidic bonds are present at the branching points, and these bonds are not broken by glycogen phosphorylase. So if your glycogen don't have alpha-1,6 glycosidic bonds, that is it doesn't have branches in it, then it can be completely broken down by glycogen phosphorylase. But if there is a branching in your glycogen molecule, then this glycogen phosphorylase alone is not able to completely break down your branched glycogen molecule. So your glycogen phosphorylase enzyme is accompanied by glycogen debranching enzyme, that is alpha-1,4 to alpha-1,4 glucan transferase. Okay, by the combination of these two enzymes, your branched glycogen molecule can be broken down. Now this glycogen debranching enzyme, okay, alpha-1,4 to alpha-1,4 glucan transferase, this enzyme shows two different activities. So this debranching enzyme has two activity. The first activity of this debranching enzyme is the transferase activity. In this transferase activity, what does this debranching enzyme do is it removes the terminal 3 of remaining glucose molecules, and it transfers the trisaccharide moiety intact to the non-reducing end of the other branch. Okay, it removes terminal 3 from the remaining glucose molecules, and it transfers the trisaccharide moiety intact to the non-reducing end of other branch. Now in the second activity of this debranching enzyme, the remaining glucose residue which is still attached to the main chain is removed by the alpha-1,6 glucosidase activity of this debranching enzyme. So this debranching enzyme shows alpha 1,6 glucosidase activity. By this activity, the remaining glucose residue that is still attached to the main chain is removed. So because of this debranching enzyme and glycogen phosphorylase, the 92% of glycogen's glucose residue are being converted into glucose 1-phosphate. Okay, the glycogen 92%. If the glycogen is made up of 100 glucose maybe, then the 92 glucose residue in the glycogen are converted into glucose 1-phosphate because of this debranching enzyme and glycogen phosphorylase enzyme. And the 8% of glucose residues that are present at the branching point are directly converted into glucose. So if you consider 100 glucose residue in the glycogen, then 92 are present. 92 molecules are converted as glucose 1-phosphate, and 8 molecules which are present at the branching points are directly converted to glucose by the combination of this debranching enzyme and the glycogen phosphorylase enzyme. So consider this is your glycogen molecule. Okay, now this is subjected to glycogen phosphorylase. So what is the activity of glycogen phosphorylase? It removes glycogen residue from the end. Okay, and they are released as glucose 1-phosphate. Okay, so this is released as glucose 1-phosphate, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this as well, and this as well. Now as you can see that there are 4 glucose residue remaining, and at this point your glycogen phosphorylase cannot act. Okay, because like it cannot act now because of the fact that 4 glucose residues are remaining. Its activity, it loses its activity here. Now what will happen is that the debranching enzyme will show its transferase activity, and it will transfer this 3 glucose here. Okay, and yeah, so this 3 glucose will be transferred to this branch. After that, the glucosidase activity of the debranching enzyme will release this glucose as well. So this is also released, and this will be released as glucose, not glucose 1-phosphate. So now you have a linear chain of the glycogen, and on this is unbranched, right? So the glycogen phosphorylase can act again on this, and it can remove the glucose residue one by one, and that is how the dephosphorylation, the breakdown of the glycogen is going to take place.